Our journey through the Great American Conference concludes today with a stop in Shawnee. We get to visit with the Oklahoma Baptist men's basketball coach, Coach Jason Eaker, in his 4th season with the program. And the Bison are picked as the preseason favorites in the Great American Conference this season, coming off first ever NCAA tournament game last year. It looked like it was supposed to be the year before. It was. And then, we know what happened in 2020. Last season, you do get that long-awaited first NCAA tournament game, Coach, and you get a win, make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. For last season, can you wrap that up for us and head us on into 21-22?
Well, Joey, thanks for having me. It's awesome to have basketball back in the air. It's been awesome in the fall semester with volleyball and football and the other sports, of getting to see the student athletes have fans, have people here supporting them, getting back to a sense of normalcy. Last year could be a whole interview in itself. It was similar. I relate it to being married, or me and Meredith had our first child a few years ago, was that I would never see my life, see the experience. If you had told me what I was signing up for, I would have never signed on the dotted line. But now that it's over, it's something that was irreplaceable. It was by far the most gratifying season that we've had as coaches, to see our young people battle through it, to see them victorious in this game or that game, to see them rewarded for their hard work. With the scoreboard airing on our side the majority of the games, that is always a luxury as a coach. Any of us coaches know how fragile that is. And so I learned a lot. God stretched me, stretched my character, stretched my purpose. But I tell you what, when we look back on it, our players, our staff, our administration, well, I'm so thankful for it. You know, there's so many different experiences that we had, but to be able to win the conference, to be able to make the NCAA tournament again, to be able to win an NCAA tournament game, it was an awesome year. It was such a testament of our guys' hard work and their character, of going around and playing in all these empty gyms, and them getting bad news after bad news, and quarantine after quarantine, and just dealing with everything in a way that us adults, I could not see myself handling it that way. We gave them all this advice, but as you're giving them advice, you, in the back of your mind, you're not sure that you would have taken that advice as a young person. And so to be able to just have that experience for them and for us moving forward now that it's over, I believe through my relationship with the Lord that it'll benefit us with our character when we go through much harder things in life, with our families, with them as they become adults. And so that's the way we chose to push through it. That was our encouragement. That was our sustainability, was having that purpose and having that relationship in our life.
You're exactly right, Coach. I think we could do a long form interview about that alone, and I'd love to hear that sometime. I appreciate you sharing what you have with us right now. Pushing on into 21-22 now, you already have one of your exhibition games in the books. You've had a chance to see some of those players that are returning. What does the team look like from your perspective now with one exhibition game in the books?
Well, we did have an exhibition game a few days ago. It already is in our rear view mirror. We had an opportunity to go through shoot around for the first time, go through a pregame warm up, go through somewhat of a scouting report. It was fun. It was fun for our players. It was just a brief pause in the real work. With the real work is the day-to-day and the preparation and the practices. We got to also have our golf tournament on the same day, which was a huge success. We had homecoming weekend. Our football program got yet again a huge win. in dramatic fashion against Southeastern here in homecoming. It was an overtime, great win. We had an unbelievable crowd. I can't even begin to tell you how much I admire, how much I respect so many of our coaches here at OBU, starting with Coach Chris Jensen. It was so neat. I got to stand outside the field and wait for the players to come off and just see that there were several of us that stood, probably a couple hundred, and as they came off the field, we clapped for them. And as you know, the football programs around the GAC did not even get to have a season. So we need to be very cautious with us explaining our adversity when those kids never even got an opportunity to compete in the GAC at Division II football. And so we just clapped for them and smiled for them. And I just, I hope it blessed them. I've seen several of the football staff and players, and, it was a really neat moment for a program that had basically started from scratch a few years before I got here. And so it was a good weekend, but we're back at practice, and where the coaches love it and the players are ready to play the games.
I'm sure they are. Among those players, you've talked about what your team has gone through, and specifically we were talking about last year. Some of those players return, including Harrison Stoddard. You have a few seniors on the squad. 3 of them have been with you already for a while and in their journey with the folks there at Oklahoma Baptist. Harrison Stoddard leading the way among some other returners.
Well, we had a wonderful senior group last year, and so when all 3 of them, Jaquan Sims, Brantley Thompson, and Harrison Stoddard, when all 3 of them came, we decided to tell them to work themselves through last season, and let's not even talk about it. Let's just go through the season, and then we'll talk about it in the spring and whatever they wanted to do. We were going to be supportive. They're 3 awesome young men. And so when all 3 of them at different times came into my office in the spring and told me that they wanted to come back, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that it was significant. It moved me emotionally. It excited me to get hard at work with me and my staff to try to surround them with another group that was capable of competing in our conference and competing against other Division II schools. They've had great careers, and for the NCAA to allow them to have one more year along with Burke Putman, who transferred from Valdosta, he will get to have another senior year. We have a really good core group of seniors, but what I've told you and all of our people here know is that those 3 seniors mean much more to me than their points or rebounds or the back-to-back NCAA tournaments or conference championship. They mean a lot to us and our staff, and just getting to be with them. And so I'm already dreading not having them around, even though it's going to be March or April, but I can't really visualize at this point our program not having Harrison, not having Jaquan, not having Brantley, not only for their play, but just what they provide. They provide meaning, they provide purpose in what we're doing. They are unbelievable to coach, and so they're good players. We're fully counting on them doing good on the court this year, but regardless of how they do, their impact and what they've done, even if they do nothing else, has been very significant.
We're speaking now with Jason Eaker, the head coach of the Oklahoma Baptist Bison, preseason favorites this year in men's basketball in the GAC. Coach, you mentioned Putnam. He's one of the transfers for you, and you have a number of freshmen coming in as well. The group there has been so strong, and I know you've talked about it here and in previous times that we've visited. It's just been so strong of late. But there have to be, new players coming in. That new blood always has to be replenished, and you have a lot of freshmen on this squad as well.
We have had several additions. Burke is one of them. We signed a young man out of Cassidy named DJ Freeman. We are looking for him to be someone that has a significant role He has a lot to learn, a lot of ways to grow, but he's a dynamic young player, really a fantastic young man. Between his family, his high school coach, and so he's learning and growing and going through all that process, and so such a benefit to him that we get to have those seniors back to just explain and find, they have their own way of communicating and coaching in a more effective and better way than the adults. Kids can coach kids better than us adults at times, depending on how they decide to use their influence. But, you said something about the preseason favorite. I think this year we proved it 2 years ago. And I am fully anticipating the GAC to prove it again this year. You need to look out for the GAC men's basketball. We don't have enough time on this podcast, but we could go down the list of the schools that not only have a chance to win our conference. I would say whoever your 12, 11, 10, and 9 picks are in our conference, one of those schools could easily win our conference. And just keep a close eye on the out-of-conference games, because this conference, from top to bottom, and there is no top and there is no bottom when it comes to the preseason. The GAC, since I've been in it, if you're a new coach, brand new, you'll get picked last. If you have a bunch of returners and you won the league the previous year, you'll get picked first. And that's really the only basis from which it means anything. So us being the preseason favorites, I did not vote for us. I think the best returning group, the best team is Southern Arkansas, and Coach Sharp and his bunch. And then we could go down the list with the teams, or, we saw the Oklahoma teams so much, whether it be Southwestern and the wonderful group they have. East Central is going to be dynamic this year. Northwestern has signed a lot of really good guys, and Coach Vinay has won several championships, and they're someone who I think everyone should keep an eye out for. And then you have SNU and Southeastern, and we all know who they are and the type of coaches that they have. And then you could go on and on and on about the Arkansas side. And so I mean this sincerely, and I think all of us GAC head coaches know this to be true, is that we're taking more and more pride in our league because we know the competition amongst each other. We try to beat each other, and there's definitely a competitive atmosphere, but we have a lot of pride in one another. When we see another program in our league are playing in another conference, I'd be shocked if you didn't have 11 other head coaches and staffs rooting for that coach and that program, because we know how good the schools are in this league. And so I'm really looking forward to the GAC having an opportunity again to go out of conference, because it was no coincidence. It was no shock. It was no gift that we got 4 teams in to the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. And that was better than the Northern Sun, better than the MIAA, and I fully anticipate our leagues being better than those 2 leagues again this year.
All right. Well, Coach, then you mentioned paying attention to those out-of-conference games. Let's go ahead and start talking about those leagues again. Then you have the Northern Sun Conference Challenge, which you all get to host, and that's coming up on November 12th and 13th. Then you travel, take on a couple of MIAA schools, Missouri Western, Washburn, and then you're on the road again at West Texas over in Canyon before you get to the GAC portion of the schedule, on the road for your first 2 games against Northwestern and Southwestern. And, Coach, that is a challenging pre-conference schedule before you get into the challenge of the GAC that you've talked about.
Well, ever since we've been here, starting with our first year, I think our first year with Coach Woldridge, the previous coach, he not only left Harrison Stoddard and Brantley Thompson for us to coach, which was his ultimate gift, but I feel like his dirty Santa gift was the schedule that he left. He left us with Washburn, Northeastern. He left us with there was all kinds UCO. There was all kinds of different teams on our schedule. And so after we finished that first year, and actually Coach Adam at SNU began to educate me that first year of how important it was, the scheduling piece, and how you have to schedule good teams, not only for your program, but for the conference, to even have a chance at making the NCAA tournament because of how the computer works and because of how the selection process works. And so I took his advice to heart, and consulted with our players and administration here, and they've wanted to play good people and a good schedule. And so we're playing an unbelievable schedule. We've got two top 10 teams in the nation on it. We have us and Coach Green and myself. We're hosting those two, MSU Moorhead and Wayne State, here opening weekend at OBU in a conference challenge. We were just talking the other day with their staff about how exceptional those two programs are. Missouri Western, they made the NCAA tournament last year to be able to play in their classic. Northwest Missouri, I think, is the early game that night, and we're the late game. But the neat thing is that they're going to be able to come back to our place the following year, Washburn and Missouri Western. And then we originally were scheduled to play in West Texas A&M's Thanksgiving Classic in the last year. But of course, all the non-conference was taken away. We did take our boys. Our one out-of-conference game last year was in Canyon. We played a single game with West Texas, but we didn't get to play in the Thanksgiving Classic. So we just re-upped that contract and joined in there with, I think Southwestern will be there with us. If I'm not mistaken, that may be wrong. But it'll be challenging. If we win any of those games, it will have meant a lot of things, that we have played good. We had gotten some calls. We made some shots. We ate a good pregame meal. If we win one of them. But if we lose all of them, I know our team will get better. I know that it'll test us. It'll stretch us and get us ready for what will be a daunting, those 22 games in the GAC for all of us. And I don't want to speak for all the programs, but the way that I look at it, you just mentioned the first two, at Northwestern, at Southwestern. Can you have a more tough start than that? And so I think our non-conference will prove to our guys that every time you lace them up, the consequences are real if you're not ready to play. And so we try to look at it, Joey, from the standpoint of, is that every game, if we do our part, is a 50-50 game. Sometimes you don't think that you have a 50% chance of winning, but you do try to fight for that 50%, or is the way that we look at it anyways.
Well, Coach, I understand, and I appreciate all of the wisdom that you've given today. So I look forward, and I'm going to go back through and sort some of this out again. But as it stands right now, still, according to the preseason coaches poll, you did get that top spot. So the Bison preseason favorites here heading into 21-22. And success to you all this season. And thank you very much for taking time with us today as we're concluding our journey through the GAC. Coach Jason Eaker and the Oklahoma Baptist Bison, again, picked at the top of the GAC poll this year. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Joey, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving us exposure here in the GAC. I know all of us appreciate it. We appreciate your hard work, and most importantly, your character and the integrity in which you do your job. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot.